Let's get going. We're doing loose watercolor painting. I'm using paper from the brand Saunders Waterford. The weight is 425 grams per square meter, so it's quite thick, quite heavy. I spray it with water on both sides, and that is because when I do that, the paper will lie flat on this plastic board that I have under. So I let the paper soak for a while and prepare my paint. I'm using only one color for this painting. It's Perylene green from the brand Winsor and Newton. And I always use tube paints because then I can use different consistencies of the paint. So what I'm doing to prepare the paint is I add only a few drops of water to liquefy the paint, so it's easier to paint with. I usually don't use the paint straight out of the tube because it's too thick. So just a tiny amount of water to make the paint thinner. I wipe off the surface. So we are starting off with a dry surface. Now there will be moisture inside the paper and of course behind the paper, and that will help us when painting wet on wet, but also it will make the paper stay on this plastic surface. So as you can see, I add water again, so not to the entire surface, just parts of it, and that's because I need both dry and moist parts on the paper. And then I pick up some paint, add it to the wet area first, and you can see it blooming straight away. So no straight edges, no sharp defined lines in the wet area. It's only in the dry area that I will get clean, crisp lines. I'm using the side of the brush, it's also called dry brushing, to get spontaneous brush strokes. I always make sure to save some white areas because those are really important for the lighting and also the contrast in the painting. So as you can see, when I add the paint, we will have soft areas, soft edges, and then we will have more defined edges where the paper is dry. I work quickly here, and that's because I want to add the paint while the paper is still wet. With this wet on wet technique, I use a lot of paint and water in my brush, and that's because I want the paint to bleed out and create these feathery effects in the softer areas. Normally when I paint wet on wet, I would rather like to have more control, and in those cases I don't use as much water and paint in my brush. But in this one, that's the effect I want. So I'm using a sable brush that can carry a lot of water and paint inside. I'm trying not to overwork this, so I always, you can see me taking tiny little pauses, tiny breaks, and that's because I am constantly looking at the picture. When should I stop? I don't want to overdo it. I want to keep it fresh and with as few brush strokes as possible. So the dry area in contrast with the wet area is one important thing for creating contrast and interest in the picture. Another important part is these really almost black, dark areas in contrast with the white paper, also important. And that's one reason that I only mix a few drops of water in the paint so that I don't dilute it too much. And now I'm happy with the painting, so I will not continue anymore. I hope you like it. Remember to subscribe, and I will see you again. Bye!